So it's a great pleasure to give you an insight into tax collection in a turbulent time, because that's the topic I've selected. What I mean by turbulent time, everyone can guess. So the recent years were full of unprecedented, unexpected, and hardly manageable events. And of course, many changes are coming into the game, and the whole global scene is in a constant movement. And it is also affecting the tax collection and the governments. I would like to concentrate on the value-added tax, basically as usual, because it is a tax that is collected in most or many countries across the globe. So basically, it is collected in nearly 170 countries. And of course, some countries are managing quite well when it comes to the VAT collection, other countries not. I'm concentrating on the Polish example. However, I'm going to present it a little bit from the European perspective. So what are the methods first? Of course, there are many measures to say whether a country is managing well in VAT collection or not. Some are based on gross domestic product, some based on final consumptions. I've selected for international comparison the so-called VAT revenue ratio because it provides a relatively broad review of the performance of a value-added tax in different countries, and it is taking into account, for instance, compliance, for instance, the so-called political gap, so how countries are trying to affect economy by shaping, for instance, rates or exemptions when it comes to value-added tax. That slide presents a European comparison. As you can see, some countries on the left side are not managing well when it comes to value-added tax collection. Other countries, basically on the right side, are quite good in collecting VAT, because the higher the ratio, the better the collection. Of course, the collection is affected by many factors, and I will only mention some of those factors. I will use predominantly Polish example, because a larger comparison will really take many hours. So the first one to take into account is VAT standard rate. VAT standard rate, and here I'm compared the European Union countries, apart from UK, which is no longer part of the European Union, but still I left the UK in international comparison. So you can see some countries, really the VAT rate is not the only factor affecting the collection. Some countries have very low VAT rate, and they are managing well. Other countries have low VAT rate, but they are not collecting such huge amounts of value-added tax. There are some countries like Greece and Italy that are affected by many negative factors and have low VAT performance. There are some countries like Luxembourg, of course. Standard rate is affecting positively the collection, because the lower rate, the higher the indicator, but also some other factors are coming into the game. What is a factor affecting to a large extent VAT collection is the VAT gap. So how people are really cheating, or what is the fraud scale in particular countries. In the European Union as such, the fraud scale was estimated to be between 31 billion to 93 billion in 2020. And here on that slide, you can see Europe in comparison. So some countries like Italy or Greece or Romania are really badly influenced by the fraud, and that may be a reason why they have low VAT indicators. That's an example of Poland, but of course, a wider European comparison will be necessary to say which countries may be also affected by VAT debt. In Poland, you can see this debt was escalating since 2016. Of course, there are many factors behind that, but in other countries, debt or tax arrears may also be increasing, especially in the last time. VAT collection is also affected by the so-called political gap, and political gap means to what an extent those countries use reduced rates. That's an example, once again, of Poland, and you have a relatively broad application of reduced rates in Poland, applying to wide and diverse supplies of goods and services. Of course, the recent times were affecting collection as well, because countries were taking many measures to counteract inflation effect of the war, to counteract the COVID crisis. Once again, Poland, because as I said, comparing all the countries will take too much time. So we had in implementation of the zero rate for vaccines and as for SARS and COVID-19, but also we had an implementation of reduced rates to counteract inflation and rising energy costs. So inter alia, reduction of the VAT for gas, electricity, mod fuels, foodstuffs, fertilizers, and so on. Many other countries also use that method to counteract phenomena. Because of the large scale of fraud, the European Union decided also to fight this fraud by implementation of different new methods. And split payment was coming into the game. In Poland, it was in 2019. Similarly, in many other countries, the split payment was, what is that? It means that when you are an entrepreneur and you are paying for goods and services, there is a division between the amount of the value-added tax and the amount net for the acquisition of goods and services. And you are paying those to different accounts. One is the entrepreneur account and the other is the government account. Digital reporting, that is also a method to fight fraud. This is called standard audit file. And this method is also implemented in many countries, and application of that method will in the future severely affect, I hope, positively, collection of the VAT, not only in Poland, but also in the whole European Union. What are the measures that are coming into the game in the last years? There is a wide application of big data and algorithms, artificial intelligence. Also, there are new technology being applied, like the blockchain. The bias is being, that's a system to check whether enterprises are registered for VAT. That is also being changed. Then there are new obligations, for instance, obligations for digital platforms to report income earned by sellers. So those measures are planned to control fraud in the future and increase VAT performance in all the countries of the European Union. And now concluding, the system in Poland is suffering due to relatively VAT arrears and VAT gap. It is also the case in many countries that are fighting that phenomena. And taking into account international comparison, Poland is managing quite well. Of course, there are countries that are better in VAT performance, but we still should be proud about having a ratio only slightly lower than the European average. In the recent times, there will be many changes. Some of those changes are already put in place in the European Union. And what are the advantages of such changes? There will be an easier and faster communication between taxpayers and tax authorities that will allow reduction of the VAT gap. More things are being supervised by the government on the by the way of electronic means. Yeah, it will mean faster and easier audits and better use of resources. However, we should also think about disadvantages of what is happening. There is a risk of cyber attacks. For instance, many people are receiving messages from hackers that you should pay your tax debt and you should check whether you owe money to the tax authorities. And of course, there is those international actions happening and warning on the TVs that people should be quite careful about these attacks. And there are also high costs involved with the adapting to the technology, especially for small and medium-sized enterprises. And because the artificial intelligence is coming into the game, and for instance, we may have in the future tax advisors or dispute resolution carried out by the artificial intelligence, that there is a risk of potential job cuts. Thank you very much for your attendance and listening.